My name is Austin Thompson. I'm a native of Haywood County. I've got a beautiful wife named Rachel. We've got 2 sons. Max is 4 and Will is 2. Beautiful family, wonderful family, love them very much. Probably the biggest blessings I've got walking around. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for a little over 3 years. Celebrated 3 years in February. I would say the biggest difference between today and this day 3 years ago is I'm here. I'm conscious, I guess. I was saved at 9 years old. Spent a whole lot of time in between then and I guess you could call it my rebirth when I started my journey in sobriety. Probably the last 2 months of my drinking were when I really started to embrace that this was not who I was designed to be. That being the active alcoholic. Stuff started falling apart, relationships were strained, and just really lost touch with myself. I rode the fence all the time, back and forth. A lot of masks. I got really good at wearing masks. I could be who you needed me to be at any given time. Lies had pretty well consumed my life to the point to where I began to believe them. That got so extreme towards the end of my drinking. I even started to question my own salvation. So it was a lie that had taken over my life. But at the end of my drinking, I wanted to end my life. At that time, Max was my only son, and the devil had me convinced, amongst other things, that I was no good as a father, I was no good as a husband, a friend, a Christian, anything. I cried out. It's about as simple as I can put it. Shook my fist at the Lord, if you would, and just asked why and what and how, what's left, what do you want? And he answered me. It was probably one of the greatest moments of peace I've ever experienced. But it wasn't a magical wand type moment to where he removed it. It was more of I'm still here, I've been here. Quite frankly, I've been carrying you for a while. You're gonna have to get up and do a little bit of work. So a lot of the men and characters in my life that had spoken so much truth, from Heath to Lee Brown to Rupert Medford, Tim Tuggle, these people that had spoken so much truth into my life, and God had even used me in the midst of my sin to influence them and change in some of their lives. I picked up my phone, all 2 tons of it, and made a phone call and just listened. And when I didn't listen on the call to Lee Brown, he quickly told me to listen. I'll put it that way. So I knew that I had to fully surrender everything to really deal with this disease in my life. I had put the white flag on the string and kind of closed my eyes and acted like I had raised it a few times, actually multiple times, but really handing that over to God 100%, knowing that it was a life or death situation, like I'd been told so many times before by people in my life that God had placed there for that moment. I gave it up. I gave it to the person whose pay grade matched the problem, because it didn't match mine. So upon doing that, and with the help of some, multiple people that were selfless and helping, people seeking recovery and AA, and nearly 200 days straight of that, just a constant feeding of truth. It left pretty quick, but I continued to train, if you will, for the day that the battle may come back. So today, the temptation of alcohol, I can honestly say, is not there. But I do know one thing, I know that I am always one drink away from being that same person. So I think going back to the beginning, the work that God placed before me and the strength that He gave me to rise up and do that every day for so long, and like they say in the program, taking cotton out of my ears and putting it in my mouth, I started listening. I started praying regardless of how uncomfortable it was in the beginning. Today, God has changed my life to a point I can't even explain. My story, He's given me courage and zeal and just taking away all the fear and the monkeys from my back, and I'm very comfortable sharing my story. I live my recovery out in front of everybody, and quite frankly, He's opened doors with keys that I thought were worthless. The mistakes in my past, He's opened doors in front of me to help other people get into recovery, to help families who've lost people to substances, to suicide. So all those things that the enemy and the world had me convinced had me disqualified to do anything for the kingdom of God. Quite frankly, all those things wound up being the exact opposite. They opened doors, and rather than going around and preaching the gospel word for word, I can go around and meet people where they're at, love them where they're at, have an understanding for where they're at, and love them just like Christ asked me to do.